Hello, my fellow headbanging tankers. Momentary Genius here with the new update for today, and that is Metalfest. All things Metalfest. I'll just be talking about Metalfest, the premium bundle, my thoughts overall on this. I know it kind of addressed in last week's video about why it's okay for Kiss to be in Metalfest, but now we're going to have to take a bit of a down note. So, yeah, like and subscribe if you're a headbanger for life. Now, alright, let's start off with the elephant in the room. 53,000 gold for the Mega Bundle. Not bad, considering the usual Wargaming price game and what you do get in this bundle. Still, horribly expensive. You do your conversions, and if you have the gold, then by all means, get the Spaceman. Tank. That's it. That's my one little recommendation there for the Cold War players. World War II players, you do as you do. And if this is a little bit of a rough video, it's because it is early. I am barely through my first cup of coffee. I'm trying to get this done in a timely fashion. Now, when I first saw the clues, as many of you know from my Twitch streams and from a couple videos here on YouTube, I called it pretty early on. It was Kiss. The font was oh so recognizable. Oh, so they have a song called Gods of Thunder, an album Gods of Thunder, so I was like, oh, alright. This 2 plus 2, this ain't hard math. So my first thought was this will be the least metal fest, because let's be honest, Kiss had the appearance of what would become heavy metal. Their act was one of the ones with like Alice Cooper that kind of set how the stage performance for a lot of heavy metal bands should be, especially going into the 80s. And that's their main contribution. When you listen to their songs, when you listen to their music, you're getting more Poison, Motley Crue vibes. Okay, hair metal, still metal to some, to others, it's weak sauce. But having grown up with Kiss because of my parents, who were like the last of the baby boomers, this feels oh so rock and roll. And it's like, okay, again, like I said, respect your elders, respect your heritage. I'm like, okay. But the big thing is this is kind of one of those things of like, I knew we could get a lot because, all right, we have 4 awesome looking commanders. I knew we were going to get 3D commanders just because they're iconic. It makes sense. How many tanks are we going to get? 4 makes sense, but you never know. In the interest of saving time and money and overcharging, they Wargaming Chicago could have just done 2 World War II tanks and then 1 Cold War and kind of let this all going, wow, you guys cheaped on us. They did not. We're getting 2 tanks for each mode. Era 1. You I guess the premium flood of tanks is now go for Era 1 because usually Era 1 would only get 1 premium tank a year. Now we're getting the Catman and the Spaceman, and I'm a little worried about the safety of Era 2. Era 1. Era 2 we know is a mess. Era 3 is, depending on what you have, the armor either works or doesn't work. But that's also a bit sloppy. So this is, I'm like, oh god, stability of the game further in question. But if you're watching this video, you're kind of like the Nut House. Alright? We didn't come here to be overly smart. We're just more like functional. Alright? For better or worse. We like our theatrics. That's what I'm saying. Okay? We're not Dream Theater fans. Alright? So, this was where things got little bittersweet because I'm like, this is gonna look great. The commanders are gonna be awesome. The tanks are gonna look at least appealing for essential reskins. And I was like, probably without a shadow of a doubt, I'm getting the commanders. You know, obviously the demon's gonna look great. It was just the fact that I don't consider Kiss to be heavy metal. Influencers of heavy metal, yes. A lot of bands that I would consider for Metalfest, like Anthrax, Pantera, obvious ones that they've said they have been influenced by, I guess, obviously. If if you were an early teen in the mid 70s just starting to find your musical direction, obviously, and you didn't like to listen to Cleveland's Clearwater Revival, okay, you probably did, but obviously you weren't a disco kid, so you're just like, I need something a little more rougher or rawer or more aggressive. Yeah, okay, Kiss made sense. It did, along with Black Sabbath, etc. So it's it's just one of those things of like this. I made the joke. It was like, yeah, this is like yacht rock or dad rock. This is because, like I said, my parents were boomers, so this felt so much like I have to call it. This is boomer rock to me. I'm like, this is so old, and a, I think we need to skew a little younger. Although my metrics are not to be compared to any other content creators or probably Wargaming's their own, but most of my viewers are between the ages of 18 and 34, with a few younger teens and a few Gen Xers. Hi. I, I don't I don't maybe a boomer or two might be scattered throughout there, but um I really think when I say we need to skew younger, I guess the safe year or decade is the 90s. I know a few someone goes, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about having Corn or Limp Bizkit in the game." All right, maybe. Uh technically those are now definitely dad rock, I hate to say. Uh and they're still kind of relevant. Limp Bizkit still touring. Wes Borland probably looks his most awesome I've seen in a long time, but let's not get into that nitty-gritty. So, I I've, I feel like I'm not surprised by this either because Kiss, the brand, that's brand, not band, is they will, if the numbers look good on paper, Kiss will gladly put their brand on it. They found out a long time ago, or they figured out, or was like, you know, we could make a ton of money constantly touring, perhaps, but that's a lot of work. If maybe we could just start, finding that right level of effort versus reward, and like if we put in they went for like how much effort do we need to put in to generate a comfortable amount of profit, and they figured it out. They became a brand, less of a band, and here we are today. The Kiss Army may not be what it once was, but it's still going. Everyone sings along to Party Every Night. You know it, I know it. Good luck naming any other songs outside of like Detroit Rock City. And so I kind of thought we'd start with Kiss, not be kind of. I'm not saying ending, but this is a low note. This is a low note. Two other bands are supposed to be returning. We don't know which one those are. Um, I can only assume Sabaton. How come Sabaton was the obvious? Because they are Wargaming darlings, hasn't had their own proper Metal Fest. I don't know. Where's our Sabaton Cold War tank? I thought it would have been obvious to lean into Sabaton, considering how friendly they are with Wargaming, but that's kind of not been a thing. So, yeah, comment down below. How do you feel about Kiss being a frontlining Metalfest, taking the main stage? Personally, with a few little comments on the previous YouTube video, some possible bands that I'd like to see, obviously, comment down below. I've mentioned Anthrax, I mentioned Pantera. We can throw in, because they're still touring, Slipknot. I think some of us would appreciate some Alice in Chains. No, they are heavy metal, okay? They're nothing like Nirvana, in my opinion. I'll listen to their music. We brought up Sabaton, and Sabaton has a few collaborations that I think might be interesting. Again, for if we truly want to address the younger crowd, obviously with the amount of money we'll be spending on this Metalfest, hey, Wargaming, get yourself the platinum subscription to SiriusXM. Put on Liquid Metal, maybe even Octane. Listen to that a couple hours and kind of get an idea of what the current state of heavy metal is. You'd be actually listening to bands that have come out in the last decade, and you'd also occasionally come across some bands that are still touring and still putting out albums. Oh, how could I remember? Obviously, Ozzy Osbourne is one that we want, but still very prominent. Name still. I don't think we could afford Ozzy Osbourne. May he rest in peace. Judas Priest. They trekked up. They kept going into the 90s. Painkiller. Not exactly my favorite song, but I know it has its fans, and it is a very powerful, fast song. I'm not a big fan of falsettos, okay? So that's why someone may have also mentioned King Diamond in the comments about, theatrics and stuff, but I cannot stand Abigail. I can't. I'm sorry, too much falsetto. Like I said, Pantera, Anthrax, but Sabaton has collaborated with, let's talk about European bands. Pain, fronted by the singer of Hypocrisy. That's a black metal band. We'll avoid the black metal. I don't think we're ready for black metal, okay? I think we're, let's be real. I think there's a bit of a conservative streak in some of the player base in World of Tanks. Certainly Modern Armor, alright? We can't go too young now. Now, I bring up Pain. If you don't know them, that's okay. They don't tour a lot. They're kind of like Led Zeppelin. They did a lot more albums and some touring. Check them out, alright? Have a Drink on Me. Shut Your Mouth. That's where they introduced their alien character. So Steve could have a friend, and we have a new commander. Bam, boom. They kind of like that. Okay? Check out Pain if you haven't. More rock and roll. Okay, that's more of that hard rock, industrial-esque rock, but not like Nine Inch Nails. Okay, not quite like that hard. Yeah, I think you'll like them. And a Catbox Danny commented. She has her own YouTube channel she sometimes plays World of Tanks Modern Armor, sometimes PC, sometimes she plays the Snail game and a whole bunch of other games. But she brought up a band that kind of, they've collaborated with so many bands. It's kind of like, you know what? Let's talk about more of the Asia Japanese market with Baby Metal. I think the style of tank skins, commanders, 2Ds, and all things would also be right up there. And although I say youthful, they are veterans now of the music industry, so it's kind of like, yeah, not unfamiliar. They are known in the metal circle, loved or hated. Some metalhead purists are like, no, and then you've got Rob Zombie being like, they're awesome. They bust their ass. How about you show them some respect? They have collaborated with. Well, they've Borden from Sabaton, Slaughter to Prevail, Poppy, Spirit Box, and I don't know how this is going to land. I do appreciate female bands. I'm a straight white male, so at some point I can't help but feel like if there's too much male action going, I'm like, yeah, this sausage fest ain't for me. I'm getting uncomfortable. I'm going to go bounce. All right. Irish goodbye. So, yeah. You bring in with baby metal. Well, I don't know if you're going to bring a whole new demographic. I'm going to be real with that. But we do acknowledge the Japanese player at the very least, and some of the Asian community. But also, it's a newer band. And they're not, with songs like Gimme Chocolate, not actually scary. They're not as intimidating as some of the bands I've mentioned. So I feel that they're kind of safe. Like I consider Kiss to be safe. So, I'll wrap it up there. How do you feel about Kiss being in being in Metalfest, being in the game, and no one's here now, but I'll apologize for anyone looking to talk about tanks and stats and something like that. That's not my jam. I like to take a slightly different perspective of this game. We've come to I don't know if the phrase love-hate works or come to just be I can't shake the routine of the game. So, yeah. Comment down below. What do you feel like I feel that since they've talked about the updates that are not in the game, updates that do not include anything, again, about a proper, highly visible map boundary, a Metalfest that is beginning the season of big events, right around the corner, we have the Awaken mode, Halloween, and Christmas, so this is the beginning of that. And do you feel this is a low point or a high point? A good beginning, obvious prices aside. Comment down below. What do you think? I personally, with all this, I'm not unsung. I'm not done. I'm not mad. All right, but the fact that my hill to die on still needs to be stood on, and that we do not have proper map boundaries, and now what I'm considering, in my opinion, is a lackluster Metalfest 2025. Kiss, everything looks great. It's just the band could be heavier. I'm side eyeing the door. All right, I'm side eyeing the door. So, what do you do? What's your opinion? Comment down below. I hope the RNG's in favor and keeps the tracks on the ground. Or wait, stop, pause, reverse that. I hope you keep your tracks on the ground and RNG's in favor. And I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.